Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about our Fate Accelerated Rogue Squadron game. So this Fate Accelerated tabletop role-playing game was recently played, and it had 3 players in it. And actually, I'll tell you the setup for the game, and then I'll explain the players and where they fit in. So the setup for the game, this took place in Star Wars continuity time. It took place at Star Wars Episode 4.5. So it takes place between Star Wars A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Okay? It is a Rogue Squadron campaign, which means that the campaign is about top Rebellion aces. In fact, top Rebellion ace is the high concept for every single player character, which means that they are an #1 starfighter pilot that is highly valued by the Rebellion and is sent on the Rebellion, some of the Rebellion's most dangerous missions. Just to give you a concept of what that means to really be part of the Rogue Squadron is they are considered some of the top pilots within the Rebellion. And so one of the things is that there's almost no limits on what Rebellion equipment they can get. They get the best X-Wings, Y-Wings, A-Wings, pretty much any ship they wish, right? So that was part of the game, right? Okay. All right. And so at this point, so that's where everybody was as far as the setup of the game. And also, just to be clear too, I'm very blessed to have this wonderful book. I highly recommend this book. It was invaluable in getting this particular game going. So, and that is the Star Wars Book of Books. So it's by Pablo Hidalgo, and I think I have the title's a little different than I just said, but it is a book. It's 400 pages long, and what it does is it summarizes every single fiction book that has been written for Star Wars up to the time of its publishing, which was about maybe 2014 or 2015, right? So it actually, talks about hundreds of Star Wars novels, hundreds of Star Wars short and short fiction. Pretty much any text that was written as fiction for Star Wars since the very beginning, this book talks about it. It's a really, really invaluable book. So one of the things I did was I read all the entries for every single one of Mike Stackpole's Rogue Squadron novels, right? So that was great because that told me who all the characters were and everything that happened within those novels. Now, we didn't use all we really used was the original structure of Rogue Squadron, which was that it was the rogue leader was Wedge Antilles. That's in our game. Our rogue leader is Wedge Antilles. Then there is a top pilot called Irisi Delaret, right? And she's a member of Rogue Squadron. And then there is Tycho Selchu. Okay. Last there is Luke Skywalker. Now in our game, because he looms so large and he's such a large character, we said that Luke has been sent off by the Rebellion to somewhere else. So at this point, Luke is not a member of Rogue Squadron, right? So and that's one of the things is the moment the game begins, we're using Mike Stackpole's structure, but the moment our game begins, the timeline changes and becomes our timeline, right? And it changed almost immediately, right? And so into that structure of Wedge Antilles, Tycho Selchu. By the way, Tycho Selchu was kidnapped, was taken prisoner by the Empire, and he was with them for a long time. And a lot of people thought that he was an Imperial agent, right? So he's an amazing pilot, but he also has this cloud of doubt for many rebels around him that he might be an Imperial agent. Okay, Irisi Delaret is a human female pilot. By the way, Wedge Antilles, human male pilot. Tycho Selchu, human male pilot. Irisi Delaret, female human pilot. Okay, so that's our Rogue Squadron, and into that we add our player characters. So player characters played by Bill. We had I'm sorry, that's not correct. Played by Ted. We had Mequale. Mequale was a human male pilot. And then we also had Kojum, who was played by Dom, and Kojum is a human male pilot. And then last, very, very interesting character, played by Michael, is Stryker. And Stryker is an Iktochi male pilot, right? Now, Iktochis, this is one of the reasons why I love these Star Wars games. I know quite a bit about Star Wars. I knew what Iktochi were. Iktochi, there was an Iktochi Jedi in the prequels, okay? They have these long horns that come down. They look similar to Twi'leks, except, and rather than those like fleshy lobes that come off the back of their head, they have these horns that really make them look like bulls, okay? But the size of the horns is very similar to the Twi'leks, but they also curl forward, right? Now, what's really amazing about the Iktochi is they're precognitive, so they get snapshots. They're very sensitive to the Force. They're not Force users generally. They can be, but all of them as a race are essentially Force sensitive. And so they're so in tune with the Force that they get snapshots of the future, right? Well, this is brilliant, play by Michael, because as a pilot, if you can see, you're always seeing these different routes that you're going to fly, these different attack patterns. If you have precognition on what is going to happen, it can be helpful. Now, his precognition is not on 100% of the time, and also it will also fire off at different times outside of him being a pilot, right? But it was a really core part of his character, and he was pretty excited to play it, and I thought it was a great idea too. So we have Stryker, Iktochi pilot, and then we have Mequale, human male pilot, and then we had Kojum, human male pilot. So at this point, we start the game, right? And when we start the game with Mon Mothma gathering all of the rogue pilots, the rogue squadron pilots, in a capital ship, a rebellion capital ship, and it was very similar to the same structure for her meeting in actually Return of the Jedi. So it's a large circular room. There's a star map in the center, and the room is filled with rebellion captains, rebellion admirals, rebellion soldiers, right? But all of them are top notch, and they're all advisor level. Okay, they're all there because Mon Mothma wants their feedback. She wants to tell them things, and she wants to get ideas from them, right? So what she says is she congratulates all of them for the incredible success at the Death Star, at the destruction of the Death Star. Okay, and she says it's a time of celebration. Well, actually, they've already done their celebration. She said that she's glad that they've had a time of celebration, but she also says that she's very sad about the sacrifices that were made at Scarif. Right, so this is one of the really cool things. I mean, I can't tell you guys how much in love with the Fate Accelerated rule set I am. It's just so fast and so cheap, right? Like, it's free, so I can add players whenever I want to. I can say to someone, it's 50 pages long, so I can add a player with a week to play, and it's just amazing. It's limitless. It truly is limitless, the stories you can tell with it, right? I love Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Doing the conversion, like if you see a movie on Friday and you want to run a campaign literally the next day, you can do that with Fate Accelerated. It's not a big deal. It'd almost be impossible to do that with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rules or almost any other rule set out there. GURPS, anything, right? Fate Accelerated is truly built for lightning fast storytelling. Really, really big fan of the core rule set, like the Fate Accelerated edition. So with that said, so basically she calls everybody together, and she says, "Hey, I'm not really happy about the sacrifices that happened on Scarif. Jyn Erso, Bodhi Rook, Andor, Cassian Andor, all of these people were important to her, and she is incredibly thankful for what they accomplished, but she tells them, as the rebellion, we need to try to start getting things done without sacrificing our own lives to do it, and that means we need to work together. We need to be in sync, right?" So Mon Mothma is just, doing her thing as a leader, inspiring people, calling them to be better than they are, right? And also just her, emoting that she has sadness for the loss of Jyn Erso and Bodhi Rook and Cassian Andor, and all the men who went there to Scarif to get those plans, right? So it was, and I just really felt wonderful being able to talk, be in character as Mon Mothma and talk about those characters, because Rogue One's such a special movie to me, and I love that it just fits right into the canon now. And I think that's one of the values of Fate Accelerated, is it takes a world that you love and lets you dive into it and add to it and make it even more special to yourself and to your friends. And I mean, that's just invaluable. Like, just keep going back to, what Fred Hicks has done is truly incredible. It's one of the absolute best, definitely within the top 3, maybe top 10 tabletop role-playing games ever made, which is a big deal to me. All right, so at this point, Mon Mothma then says, "Okay, let's talk about our next move." And so she lays out 2 plans, right? So she says, so the first plan, Admiral Raddus, and you guys should remember Admiral Raddus from Rogue One. He was the Mon Calamari admiral who led the attack at Scarif and took down the planet shield, right? So they could beam out the plans for the Death Star. So Admiral Raddus stands up and he explains his plan. And his plan is full attack on Coruscant. Drive to the center, right? So he said that his plan is going to take about 2 years to complete. He wants 80% of the rebellion fleet, right? 80% of the rebellion fleet will be dedicated to one thing: penetrating the Empire's ships and planets and space fortresses, penetrating that gauntlet and going directly to Coruscant and taking Coruscant for the rebellion. Okay. This is a big, bold move. That's his plan. The other 20% of the fleet will be just out there in the rest of the galaxy, really just holding down keeping things going for the rebellion itself, right? But not really doing a lot of help, because they're really just helping with logistics and all this other stuff. So the whole drive is, let's take Coruscant, right? And then so at that point, Counselor Cowager, Counselor Cowager comes forward, and Counselor Cowager says, he's a human male, and he says, character of my own design, and Counselor Cowager says, "No, that's a bad idea. Listen, the Outer Rims, and the Outer Rim is where we need to go, and also the Mid-Rim," right? So if you look at the Star Wars map, the Outer Rim and the Mid-Rim, Coruscant is literally the center of the galaxy, and then the Outer Rims and the Mid-Rims, what he's saying is we split the fleet. We take 50% of the fleet, and we fight the Empire wherever we find them, okay? And then we take 50% of the fleet and we go into the Mid-Rim and the Outer Rim, and we help those people not to fight the Empire, but to fight all of the, essentially the scum and villainy, all of the powerful forces, bounty hunter types, soldier types, mercenary types, people who are taking advantage of the fight between the rebellion and the Empire to take over entire planets, to take over outposts, to steal ships, right, to help against the pirates and the looters and the scavengers and the raiders, right? And what we'll do is we'll go out into the Outer Rim and the Mid-Rim. We will aid people who genuinely need help, right? And then we will recruit them. right? We'll recruit all these people from the outer rims and the mid rims, gain more ships, gain more people, gain more fighters, and then, 2-3 years from now, bring them all in on the existing fight that's already been taken to the Empire, scattered, distributed, with the other 50%, right? So at this point, Mon Mothma says, what does everybody think? I really want your input, right? And so I turn it over to the player characters. And I told them, you guys have the ability to speak now. You can say whatever you want. You guys are here because you're considered top pilots, right? I'm sorry, I forgot this at the very beginning. So the first thing Mon Mothma did was she explained that they are spinning up and starting the Rogue Squadron group. And she actually, she took the time to actually introduce every single one of the Rogue Squadron to the entire room, and then also said to all the admirals and all the captains there, said, "Hey, this is Rogue Squadron. If they fly into your capital ship, you are to give them whatever they need." And so now she did not expect that there was going to be problems with that, but she was just saying, "Hey, this is important. This is a project that's important to the rebellion, and we want to make sure that these guys are taken care of, and that when it comes, we're gonna ask them to risk their lives for us, and the one thing we're gonna make sure they have is that they're gonna have the very best equipment available, to fight with." So at that point, we turn back, and they're in the room. They've heard both plans, and so at that point, my player Ted, who's playing McQuail, he tries to split the difference. He's like, "Oh well, why don't we take the 80% plan and take 20% more and send them to the outer rim?" And so I love Ted, great guy. I hate when people don't make a decision and want to do both. It drives me crazy. Now, I will say this. It's probably a weakness of my game mastering style. One of the things that I absolutely love to do in the games is I'm going to make, an important decision. I'm going to put that important decision in front of you, and I want you to make that decision. And then as a player character, and then I want you to live with the consequences, right? That's the thing. And so, so Ted said, "Hey, let's split the difference." All right. So I had him heard out. Mon Mothma thanks him for his input. And then the rest of the players kind of chime in. And I think the Itochi pilot says, "Hey, I think we should drive toward Coruscant. Let's do what Admiral Raddus had said we were going to do." At that point, before Kojum speaks up, Princess Leia, who is also there, now General Leia. Actually, you know what? I think I had her as Captain Leia at this point because, she does get a lot of power and gets, and starts to rank up. But I'm not sure she was a general right away. Not between. She was absolutely not a general between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and that's the time frame of this particular game, right? So at that point, she comes forward and she actually, walks over to. Kojum speaks up and he says, "Hey, I think we should go to the outer rims and the mid rim, right?" And at that point, Princess Leia comes over and she stands right next to Kojum and says, "I totally agree with Kojum. We should go to the outer rims and the mid rims, right?" And so at that point, the player characters, they're very excited to see Princess Leia, and they say, at that point, Kojum is glad to have her support, and at that point, everything kind of wraps up. And they decide that, and then they take a vote, right? And we actually made a roll to and I gave influence points for each player. And the roll came out, so I didn't know, and I always structure my games this way. So as the game master, I don't know if they're going to go with Admiral Raddus's plan or if they're going to go with Captain Cowager's, with Counselor Cowager's plan, which was to take 50% to the mid-outer rim and the mid rim and the outer rim, and then also to take, and then Admiral Raddus's plan to take 80% to Coruscant. And so, I wasn't sure, and the roll made it so that they were going to head take 50% to the Outer Rim and the Mid Rim, and 50% would fight in the Empire. And so at that point, Mon Mothma tasks the Rogue Squadron with, hey, I want you to scout out a safe route for our capital ships to go to the Outer and the Mid Rim. And that was the end of that segment. Thank you guys very much.